Sorry for the late start there. Sound check. Can you hear me? Is this working? Sorry for the late start. All right, it's working. Okay, guys, so welcome to another no coding robot robot making class. Now, for today, we are going to make a let me just explain myself. So one of my pet peeves when it comes to training is that I want to use, like, I don't have the time to be in front of my screens 24 hours. Now, but then again, there are certain prices that I want to be on a trade on. Let's say I want to place a buy at a certain level, but I don't want to use the built-in limit order of the trading platforms. Now, why is this? Because normally I just don't want to come in at a certain price. I want to come in when there's a clear trend, rather when there's a clear pattern, when there's price action that's telling me that, hey, this market is about to turn. Okay, so when I want to use, I don't want to use a simple buy stop, sell a simple, rather I don't want to use a simple buy limit or a simple sell limit. I want to incorporate some pattern trading into it. More specifically, I'd like to be able to see a hammer, a doji, a dragonfly doji, or a shooting star, or a gravestone doji before I join in. Okay, so before we start coding, or before we start asking our GPTs to do any coding, let me explain things a little bit further. So normally for me, I like to enter a trade when I see these kinds of candles. This is a hammer. This is a dragonfly doji. If I see these candles at the bottom of a bear market or a downtrend, then I look at these candles as signaling, hey, this market may be about to reverse. So why don't you think of putting a buy? Now, normally I also have some ideas on just how far a pullback can be. I can use my Fibonacci retracements like this one here. We can use a Fibonacci pullback, a Fibonacci retracement to figure out where we want to jump in. But I don't want to just jump in. I want to see these candles first before I jump in on any buy. Or if we're talking about selling, say in this market here, I'd like to sell if your euro is around the 1450s area already. So I can do a normal sell limit, but then again, I'd like some confirmation that market sentiment has changed. And that confirmation to me is a shooting star, a candlestick that looks like this, or a gravestone doji, a candlestick that looks like this, preceded by an uptrend. So if I cannot use the normal buy limit, sell limit orders, what can I do? One solution that I have thought of is, all right, why don't you just make an EA or a CBOT, depending on your platform. Why don't you just make one in order why don't you just make one that can execute the orders that you want to, that can place your buy or your sell only if the corresponding price action, the corresponding change in market sentiment is there. So that's what we're going to do over the next 40-50 minutes. We will try to, actually, to be honest, I've already done it before, so we're just going to recreate the process of how do we get our generative AI. In this case, we will be using Grok. How do we get Grok to make such a CBOT for me? We're doing a CBOT because honestly, when I tested making a CBOT last time, when I tested this concept before, I used a CBOT. I tested it yesterday. I used a CBOT to do it. That was the first time that I've used a CBOT. And you know what? Without really knowing the syntax of how to create a CBOT, of course, I'm familiar with how C works, but that doesn't mean that I'm adept at using CBOT, at using a CTrader CBOT. But anyway, let's get started. So again, what do we want to do? We have let me just clear this chart. So we want an EA that can monitor price levels, and if such price levels are hit, then look for candlestick patterns that tells the EA it's time for you to sell already, or if it's time to you to buy already. Okay, so that's what we want our EA to do. All right, so we tackled this before anything else. We want to make a clear instruction for, let me just open a, okay, so we want to make a clear instruction for our GPT, for our generative AI, on what it should be doing. So let's start off by defining the functions, or defining or telling the AI what exactly do we want it to do. So let me start off by telling it that, okay, you know, we have to be, it's actually a good idea to be polite with the AIs. So let's just say, can you please help me create a CBOT that would. So again, you have to be clear on what you want your robot to do. So can you please help me? So I'll put it in a notepad first before we go to Grok. So can you please help me create a CBOT that would, one, put a buy once a dragonfly doji or hammer has been spotted, has been triggered. Put a buy once a dragonfly doji or hammer comes out. In the active chart. Now we said that we have a price that we want the EA to do. So maybe that dragonfly, that pattern search, pattern monitoring function comes next. First, we should say, I want the cbot to monitor a trigger price. To monitor a trigger price and place buys once the price level has been reached and the following candlestick pattern appears. So dragonfly doji and hammer. Now, if you're very specific about how a dragonfly doji is drawn, then you could add such an instruction. But from what I've seen, the generative AIs basically assume that the body size of your candle has to be about just 10% of the whole range for it to be considered to be a hammer or a dragonfly doji. But you can adjust for these specifics later. For now, what you want to do is create or put in the exact processes that you want the robot to look for. So first condition is we want it to monitor a price level and place a buy once the price level has been reached and the following candlestick pattern appears. So same thing for the sell. So if prices dip below a trigger, then place if prices go up, okay, because we want it to sell. If prices push through a trigger, price, if market prices push through a trigger price, then put a sell if the following candlestick pattern appears. So what patterns would those be? Shooting star or a gravestone doji. Now, obviously, you want to be able to control the lot size, the take profit, the stop loss. So we also include instructions for this. So let me just say note, I want to have input parameters for lot size, what else? Take profit, based on pips, take profit on pips, what else? There's stop loss. Now sometimes you want to have an allowance between the high or low, or when the AI or the robot places its buy stop or sell stop. So let's include that instruction as well. So let me define a pip-based input that will be added to the high of the candlestick pattern when buying, or subtracted to the low of the candlestick pattern when selling. So what are we telling our EA? So basically we're telling our EA that, okay, if this is your shooting star and this is the low of the shooting star, I want you to take a sell only if prices push below whatever this pip-based input is. So let me rephrase that for the EA. Let me say that input parameters allowance where allowance is defined as a pip-based input that will be added to the high. Again, we will only take a buy if prices push past by whatever that allowance is, let's say 1 pip as a default value above the high of the hammer, or 1 pip below the low of the hammer. Okay, so we now have the elements use a default value of 1 pip. Now, to be sure, I think let's just say a default value of 0.00. You know, as a user, you can always change that 0.0001. Now, let's just say use the default value in pips, and then we'll just see how the generative AI interprets our instruction. So let me copy all of this. And now we go to our Grok. By the way, I'm using a free version of Grok. I'm not using a paid version. And even with the free version, it does pretty well. So can you please help me create a CBot? Now, just to be sure, let's just say to be used with the latest CTrader version. That would, okay, one, it will monitor a trigger price. It would look for a price and place a buy once the price level has been reached. And the following candles patterns appear. So let me just be clear on this. Has been reached. That is touched by market prices. All right, so let's have Grok write the code for us. Okay, I don't want that to be in text. So Grok would actually explain to you how how it interprets the instructions that you gave it. Okay. So by looking at its summary, you should be able to see whether Grok actually understood the intentions that you have. All right, now let's copy the code and let's just paste it with our CTrader platform. So in CTrader, you can go to this button here that looks like the Android logo. So I'll go. This is actually the this is actually here the test code that we had yesterday. So let's create a new one, and let's just call it because I already have that candle name. Let me just say PA price action price monitor price action monitor robot. Price action, let's just say price action monitor. And let's just have it blank. Excuse me. We wanted to create a new one. I think, okay, let me just say price action. Limit order price action. All right, that would be the better way of putting it. Limit order. Although technically it's not going to be a limit order because well, it depends on where you're running the robot. All right, so let's just delete all of this and place and paste the code that was generated for us. And let's build. Okay, plenty of errors there. So here's the thing again. The first time you run something, there's going to be a lot of errors. And let me just complain with Grok. Your code has generated a lot of errors. Please review. Because I don't, the thing is, I can't really copy paste the errors that were generated. So let's have it review the code first, and let's do it again. If there's still a lot of errors, then we'll just have to go line by line, review everything. At least not line by line review the code, but line by line review Okay, let me specify. It's suggesting that we specify the version of our CTrader. So let me check what the version is. It's version 5.2.11. Okay, so that's really one of the problems when using generative AI. It's not really aware of what's the latest thing in the real world. Note, we are using version 5.2.11. Okay, so let's just copy paste things now. All delete that. Delete this. So we're just calling some functions that it needs. And let's paste the rest of the code. So let's have it built again. Okay, so we're still encountering issues with its code. Now, when you're on a bind like this, you basically have multiple errors here. What you can do is you can just use, you can actually identify the actual errors. So what we'll do is we will tell Grok that I am generating error. So there's an error, there's a code for errors when you're coding. So in this case, it's saying that your error CS1026 is being triggered, and it will tell you at which line in the code that error is occurring. So line 66. So this is line 66, and this is what's creating the error. Okay, I think I have an idea on what's the problem. What the problem is. Basically, the robot is calling a function that really doesn't exist. So it's hallucinating something. So let me remind the robot about this. Let me just say, note, please define the candlestick patterns within your code and do not call non-existent libraries. Let's see if it understands that. Okay. Copy the code. And place it. And build. Okay, it's generating less errors, but that's still a lot. Okay, if encountering these issues, one suggestion that I have is you ask another AI to look at the problem. So in this case, we will ask ChatGPT to review this for us. Although I'm not really, I don't really like using ChatGPT for coding, but I don't know, because I didn't have these errors yesterday when I was doing things. So now you'll be forced to have ChatGPT do this for us. 1 Okay, and let's use Copilot. So, hi, can you please review the following code and tell me what you think it does? It is for a CBOT. Now, why am I doing this? Because before I put anything into an EA, I want to make sure that it actually understands what I'll be asking it to do. All right, so here's its analysis. So yes, it understands things properly. So what's missing or incomplete? Okay, so yeah, no actual definitions on the patterns, no cell logic. All right. So let's ask it to do the fix. So if you look at the code that it's generated, it starts off with our input values, our entry parameters. Okay, the allowance, the stop loss, take profit, the lot size, and the trigger prices. And then it identifies the variables that's needed, or the data that it needs in order to identify chart patterns. It defines the data that it needs, that it would later on need to identify the chart patterns. Now, the way modern programming works is that it's very modular. So in this case, it's not like spaghetti code like the old way of doing things. What the EA has done is that it defines what a dragonfly doji is by using mathematics, measuring the range, making sure that the body of the candle. Okay, let's take a look at this particular code. This particular section says that, okay, if, so this is, it's trying to identify what a dragonfly doji is. So it's saying that for a candle to be considered to be a dragonfly doji, it's the size of its opening and low price is greater than, excuse me, that of the opening and the high price. So basically, it's saying that the candlestick should look like this: opening, The candlestick opened here, the low is here, and that should be bigger, at least 2 times bigger than the difference between the high price and the open price. Okay, so it's basically looking at the distances between these points in order to say that, okay, you have a dragonfly doji in this case. But let's copy paste this and see if CTrader will now build this properly. Paste it, and then let's build. Okay, so there you go. One peak by using another AI, you're able to fix the problem. Although I still like Grok. I don't know. I mean, I've always found Grok to be more consistent with its work. Just strange the kind of errors that it was doing earlier. So we now have our CBOT. Now, guys, if you're used to using MetaTrader, one thing about using CTrader is that your bot can actually be run from either the platform itself, okay? The bot can be run from either within CTrader, or you have your CTrader on in your computer, or you can have the algo run from the cloud. And the nice thing about CTrader is that you don't have to buy a VPS. It will be run from the cloud. Now, will our robot work? Well, the thing is, we cannot do a back test of the robot because it requires an input parameter. So what we'll do is we will run the robot from the cloud and see what happens tomorrow. So let me take a look at our chart. Let me get back to that. Okay, so let me take a look at the chart first. And I'm thinking, okay, not euro because I do have something there. Okay, I'm thinking Aussie here. All right, if we look at our Aussie chart, this is not really the time for it to move, but looks like we have a nice resistance here at that area. Target for this run to the buy side right now. So what do I want to do? What if at that level, what is that price level? Okay, that's around 0.6501. Okay, so I want Aussie to put a sell, or I want the robot to put a sell in Aussie at 0.650 if I have this kind of candlesticks later in the hourly charts. Now, like I said, we can just run the CBOT from the cloud, okay, from the servers of CTrader. So we'll go to, I'll go again and have it run from the cloud. Okay, see that cloud symbol there? If you look at your chart, see that cloud looking logo? Okay, we'll use this. Okay, so let's run things here. And then we'll just leave it and see what happens. Okay. Actually, let's define things. We said that, let me just stop it first. We said we wanted to trade in AUD USD, AUD USD, hourly charts, and we said that we want to place sells at 0. What was that again? We want to place sells around 0.65, 0.65, 6500, but only if we have gravestone dojis or shooting stars once prices reach that level. Okay, so let me get back to this. So we've defined our currency, our time. So let's put in the price level that we want, 6,500. We have a 10,000 demo account. Let's say I want one lot opened. Stop loss 20 pips. I want to take profit at 30 pips. Pip allowance, I'll just use a 1 pip allowance. So let's start our instance, run things from the cloud, and we'll just get back to this. Okay, we'll review tomorrow if the chart shows us that the price levels that we wanted were hit, and if the candlestick patterns that we wanted to see came out. All right, so guys, I guess for now I would say thank you for joining us, and I hope that you can see just how easy it is to create trading robots in CTrader, in MetaTrader. Pretty soon we'll be doing it in TradingView. And you can do these things without knowing how to code. You can just use Grok. And okay, I'm going to say and because ChatGPT did help us in fixing the issues that Grok encountered. Okay, so again, folks, thank you for joining, and I will see you. Well, I will place an update in the YouTube video for this recording. I'll just place an update once once we've seen what happened with the trade by tomorrow. Again, this is the benefit of using CTrader. We don't have to keep our PCs on. We don't have to buy a VPS. You can just run your robot from their cloud. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us.